Hey guys, this is Ryan, and today we're going to cover some project setup and animation basics in After Effects. We'll create a 10-second animation with the intention of displaying it full screen on a high-resolution monitor. I've opened up After Effects and I've created a new project, and the first thing you're going to need to create is a composition. You can think of a composition as a container that the details of your animation are locked inside or are located inside of. You can have multiple compositions in a project, and compositions can reside inside other compositions. You'll usually have a primary or a parent composition which contains all of the content you want included in your final project. So we'll start by creating that now. I'm going to select composition, new composition. I'm going to name the composition main because it's my main composition. From the preset list, you want to select HDTV 1080 29.97. Your resolution is going to be 1920 by 1080. That's where the 1080 comes from. You're going to note that your aspect ratio is 16:9. So if you think of a television, usually they're in 16:9 these days. You're going to leave the resolution to full, and you can see that the frame rate is 29.97. So that's 30 seconds or 30 frames for every second of animation we're going to have. And down here you can see that this is the start time code, which is 0, and the duration, this is milliseconds, seconds, minutes, and hours. So right now it's set to 10 seconds. We're going to leave it there for this walkthrough. Background color is really just the background color of your stage or your canvas area. It doesn't actually export with the video, so it can be any color you like, but I'm going to leave it as black for now. I'm going to press OK. You can see over here in your project library that it's created a new composition file called main. Because main is selected, it's also in your top bar of your canvas area, which is black, the color you selected. But you can see that you have no layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer for the background, because I want an actual background in my video. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Solid, and I'm going to call it background solid. And okay, so you see here that the width and the height aren't the actual my canvas size. So what I can do is I can press this Make Comp Size button. It'll automatically update your width and your height to match the composition size. Units of pixels is fine, square pixels is fine, and I think that I'm going to leave it as white. There we go. So now it created background solid in your canvas area, and it created a layer here because it was a new layer we created, so it created a new layer in your timeline. If you look at the timeline here, basically as you move this blue pin along, even though you can't see anything happening here because there's actually no animation, this is your timeline here. So it starts at 0 and it goes all the way to 10 seconds. So every point here is half a second. So we'll be able to create animation along that. This is like a solid representation, so you can click and drag and move this around. You can also move your mouse to the edges and pull them in to shorten the length of your animation. So now there's nothing in that layer until I get to where that starts, and then when I get to the end it goes black again because this layer no longer exists at that time. One problem that you'll run into, or you may run into, I'm going to make it full size again. If I move this to the right and then I go to the end here and I try and shorten it, I can't, because I can't actually grab the end. So you have to move it back, shorten it first, and then try and put it in place, and then adjust it to whatever length you need it to be. Then anyhow, so we've got the background here. If I click in here, I can bring that blue key back, and I've got this layer extended all the way for the whole 10 seconds. So that's my white background. Now I want to insert another layer on top of it, a bar where I can put some text. So I'm going to go to Layer again and go to New, Solid, and this time I'm going to change the height to 200. And I'm going to change the color orange. I'm going to call it orange bar. I'll press OK. And now the orange bar has appeared in the timeline and in the solids folder. I've got the background solid and the orange bar. So we've got them all in our project library, and we've got the two layers here. Now I want to add some text, so I'm going to go to the top here and choose the text tool. And I'm going to change my text color to white. And Roboto and bold is alright. I'm fond of Roboto. And let's say if your website is not responsive, you are not responding to your customers' needs. And I kind of just want this to sit on one line, so I'm going to bring the font down to 48. Now, I've got the text here in the center of this, but I'm going to want to make this bar that I created a little bit more narrow. There's a little bit too much white space here for me, so I'm going to go to layer, and I'm going to go to solid settings. So once you create a solid, you can always go back in and change its settings. So I'm going to change it to 100. I'm going to leave the color the same. And I kind of like how that looks, but I'm actually going to bring two of them down a little bit, because right now I'm kind of choosing the placement for my final screen of my animation, or at least the one that contains the most information. Okay, so I like that. It looks okay. So now the third thing that I want to add, or the fourth thing I want to add, is a logo. So I'm going to go to File, Import, File. And these are 3 logos that I got from Creative Market. I believe it's called 10 name-based logos. And the reason why I have an AI file and an EPS and a PNG here is just to show you that these are the main file types that you're going to want to use. Again, the PNGs, make sure that they're sized appropriately, but if you're using an AI or an EPS file, it's a vector, so it'll scale any way you want it to without losing quality. So in this case, I'm going to choose the logo.eps, and I'm going to press import. Okay, so one thing you'll note here is that when I imported this, it didn't create a layer because I didn't choose something from the layer menu. All it did was it imported the logo into the project library. So I'm going to select the logo, and I'm going to pull it onto the canvas. I could also just drop it into the layers menu, but obviously I want to try and get its placement close to where I want it, so I'm going to drag it into the canvas area. And I'm going to let it go about here. And it's looking a little small to me, so I'm going to hold shift and drag, click and drag the, maybe I'll drag first and hold shift. There we go, that's better. Drag first and then hold shift. It's easier to, so let's say we want the logo to be about that big. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, so I've got a bar here, I've got my text, and I've got a logo that I want to animate into here. So I'm going to look down here at my timeline, and I'm going to load the bar first, then the text, and then the logo last. So the logo doesn't need to be visible at the beginning. So I'm going to grab it by the end of the timeline here, and I'm going to move it up to, say, the 4-second mark. So I'm just guessing right now, but we'll say that in the 4th second the logo will start to appear. Okay, and again with the text, probably doesn't need to come in until after there, so we'll say like that, so you can start to see it started to animate. And the orange bar is going to come in, but I'm going to want it to come in fairly quickly, so I'm going to say 1 second for the bar, and then we'll see how that goes. Alright, so The white background solid is going to stay still. I don't want it to go anywhere, so I'm going to lock it. And I'm going to move my key here up to the start, the first line of the orange bar. And I'm going to open up its properties on the left here. And you can see that you've got a bunch of different properties here. So we've got position, scale, rotation, and opacity. So these are all things that you can make adjustments for on the timeline. So right here, let's say I'm going to bring it in from the left-hand side. So I'm going to move it over to this point. So that transition is probably going to come. I'm going to bring it right before I'm going to start loading the text. So at this point, I'm going to press this little stopwatch here. I'm going to, next to position, I'm going to click that. And what it did is it created a keyframe under position value at that spot. Now I'm going to move my key back to the first frame again. And in this one, I'm actually going to click in the canvas area to make sure I have that bar selected. And then I'm just going to use my arrow key to push left and nudge that bar until it's off screen. You could probably do this faster just by dragging it, but I always have trouble keeping a straight hand when I do that. So, okay, so you can see it created just by moving it. Even if I moved it one nudge, it would automatically create a keyframe there. So we've got one keyframe here and another keyframe there. So if I now drag this key back, you can see the bar slide across. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so the bar slides in and the text just appears. So at this point, I'm going to close up the orange bar. And I'm going to go to the text layer. And here we've got text, so there's things that you can do with the text, paths, and some advanced stuff. But we're going to look at the transform, which is pretty much the same as the orange bar layer, in that you've got these same 5. And in this case, we're going to leave the position where it is, but we're going to change the opacity of the text. So again, here we're at the beginning of the text animation, and then I'm going to go to the next marker or transition point, and I'm going to expect the text to be fully have full opacity at this point. So with my cursor here, I'm going to go, and if I look at opacity, I see that it's at 100%. So I'm going to mark that 100% that I want to keep that, and then I'm going to go back here to the first frame of the text. And I'm going to click in here and change this value to 0. So it's invisible. And as soon as I change that value, it created another keyframe here. So now the text fades in. So first the bar comes in, and then the text fades in. Good stuff. Okay. So the last thing we have to do is animate this logo. And I think what I'm going to do is we're going to, and here, you know what, we'll bring this to 5 will be the endpoint, so this is where we want that. I don't have another place to put it, but or another transition, but the last one was 1 second, so we're going to go with 1 second for this transition as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up and open up the transform again. And this time we're going to transition the scale and the opacity. So what you're going to do is, right now at 5 is how we want it to see. So I'm going to press 1 for scale, 1 for opacity. I'm going to bring the key back to the first frame right there. And I'm going to change the opacity to 0. And I'm going to change the scale to 0 also. Now, when I click and drag, you can see that the logo both fades in and scales up. So that's pretty cool. Rotation I'm not doing today, but if you can imagine 100 or 360 degrees, you can spin objects around, and this one here is a number of rotations, so if you wanted it to go around 5 times, you could make that kind of animation there. Okay, so now I have my animation pretty much set up. If you put your mouse over the canvas area and you press the space bar, it will automatically run and play your animation through. If you want to pause it, you can press the space bar again and it'll stop and the key will stay there. And if I press the space bar a third time, it'll resume where it left off until it gets to the end and starts over again. So that's how you preview your animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press, actually, you know what we'll do is we'll save it first. So I'm going to go File, Save, and I've already created a folder on my desktop here, so I'm going to call this Video 001, or actually I'll call it AE Demo 001 for After Effects Demo 001, and I'm going to press Save, and then I'm going to go to File, Export, and I select Add to Adobe Media Encoder and Queue, or Encoder Queue, it's a mouthful, and click it. And usually the encoder takes a while to open, and then once it opens, it takes a while to load your file. So if you feel like you're sitting there for a long time, don't be alarmed by that. It is totally what's supposed to be happening. It's actually loading my other monitor right now, so I'm going to wait for it to load up and then drag it over for you. I'll probably also be superimposing the Media Encoder logo so that you can see it loading. Oh, here we go, it is opening on the right. So now the program's loaded, but there should be a file that appears here on the right hand side, so you just gotta wait a little bit and give it a chance to load it up. And there we go, it loaded the file. So now you can see that H.264 is the type of format that we're going to use, and our preset is to match the source bitrate, and it says output file here. So if we look and hover over here, we can see the path is it's going to create a new folder based on its file name and the name of the composition that we're exporting, which was main. So if you wanted, you could click on this to rename it. So I don't really want it to be called main. I want it to be called AE Demo 001. And I'm going to press save. And then it changes it to the name that I want it to be. Now you're going to press the Start Queue button, and what it's going to do is going to process. Now, if this doesn't say H.264, I believe if you go down here under presets, you can select it here from the list. So if yours says something different, then go select this from the list, and you should be able to change it to a MP4. Okay, I'm going to start the queue, and you're going to see the video appear down in the bottom here while it processes. And this may also take a few minutes. Okay, so I got the check mark here. That means that it's done. I can just close Media Encoder. And I'm going to go to File, and oh, I don't need to save because it says it's grayed out. It's saved already. And I'm going to look in my video folder here. And there's the folder it created based on the name. And right here I have my AE Demo 001. And I'm going to right click and choose Play with VLC Media Player. You can play with whatever media player you want, or play it in a browser. I'm going to select that and give that a minute to load up. Okay, and there we go. And there is my animation. I go to view, I think, and full screen. Try that again. Oh. There we go. So that's what it looks like full screen. That's pretty cool. Okay, so today we created a project in After Effects for the intention of creating an animation that would output onto a HDTV TV, yeah, at 1080p. We created basic animations, including tweens of opacity, scale, and position, and we exported them using the Adobe Media Encoder into MP4 format. So that's it for this video. If you would like to hear more from me, please give the video a thumbs up and press the subscribe button below to subscribe to my channel. And that's it for now. Hope you all have a good day.